Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Doffney. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. And it is my pleasure to present two of my colleagues here today to talk about the legal resources that are available through the New Jersey State Library's Law Department. Cynthia Lambert joined the New Jersey State Library Law Department in 2017, specializing in New Jersey legal research. She has been a librarian since 2008, working in the public library sector before joining the state library. Prior to becoming a librarian, she was a financial analyst for Dow Jones Indexes. In her spare time, she loves to read and knit. And her colleague, Kelsey has been with the New Jersey State Library Law Department since 2019, shortly after graduating from Drexel University with her master's in library and information science degree. She began her library career, though, in 2008 at her local library, working in several positions before continuing her education. And she enjoys cosplay, fiber arts, and playing with her guinea pigs. So thank you so much, Kelsey and Cynthia, for joining us today and going to be talking about all the wonderful legal resources that we here at the State Library provide, not only to state employees or lawyers, but the general public as well. So we're excited to dive into that. Before we jump into their presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. First and foremost, we will be taking your questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat features in the Zoom dashboard. At the end of the survey, you will be prompted to fill, or at the end of the webinar, you'll be prompted to fill out a survey. If you have time, we ask you please complete the survey. It really does help us plan our programming with all the wonderful feedback that you give us. And if you want more information on the legal resources available at the State Library, there is a web address on the screen there. I will send that out to everybody in the chat momentarily so that you have a live link. And I encourage you all at your leisure to explore that. There are a lot of wonderful resources, including digital collections that are available that might find useful. Before we jump in, one last thing, I just want to go over the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you're a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left-hand corner, you can see your audio settings. So if you're using an external listening device, like a headset or earbuds, you can check to make sure that it's connected properly there. At any point during the presentation, if you run into any issues, there is a raise hand button here in the middle. You can click on that and that'll alert me. I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to solve the problem you are having. And as I mentioned before, if you do have any questions, there's the Q&A and the chat buttons. You can use either of them to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to address your questions at the end of the presentation. So that is everything that I have for you. So it's my pleasure now to turn it over to Cynthia and Kelsey.
Hi, I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. There we go. All right. So welcome to Resources at the New Jersey State Library, Law Library. I'm Kelsey Allen, a librarian here in the law section, and today we'll be discussing what the law library offers to our patrons, including historic resources, legislative histories, subject-specific resources, and what you can expect from us, with hopefully a little time at the end for a Q&A. Currently, there are 4 librarians in the law section who all specialize in New Jersey law. Robert Heim, our fearless leader, Jones Addo, my co-presenter, Cynthia Lambert, and myself. We can help you with legal research by phone or email, or in person from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. We're generally able to respond to questions the same day. And now I'll hand the reins over to Cynthia.
Okay. Thanks, Kelsey. If you could move it to the next slide. Hi, everyone. I'm Cynthia Lambert. Thanks for joining us today on this rainy, cold February day. I'm going to be talking to you this afternoon about our special collections. A lot of times legal researchers are looking for things that come in the past. Much of the law is built on what came before. So one of the first things I want to talk about is if you need an old statute, if you need an old regulation, if you need an old court rule, there is no problem. We can do that almost instantaneously for you. We keep all of the old copies of the statutes, the West books going back to when they first began. We have the NJAC, the administrative rules back from their inception in 1969, and court rules we have going back to, there was a big revision of the court rules in 1969, and we have all of those, the annotated court rules by Gann, and we even have things that go back in time further. So if you're ever in need of something specific to New Jersey law going back in time, we can get that for you. We can often do that for you with federal information as well, but for sure we can do it for you with New Jersey information. So if you could advance the slides. The first collection I'm going to talk to you about of special collections is a really odd collection and unique to the New Jersey State Library. We have a bunch of court documents that are on microfilm. And so if you're looking for for a case that went up on appeal from 71 through 2016, or was in the Supreme Court from 67 to 2016, you would get in touch with the court clerk and they would give you a microfilm reel, and then you come into the library and you can look at that court case. Generally, these cases often have extensive briefs and exhibits from the underlying court case, and that's what our researchers are most interested in usually. So it's a bit of a cumbersome collection because it is on microfilm, and you do have to come to the library in order to view microfilm. But we have a number of ways to help you with this. One of the main things being we have an electronic microfilm reader. So you bring a flash drive with you. We do not have flash drives here. And you bring a flash drive with you, we can get you set up, and the machine pretty much does the rest. So you can do other work while you're here waiting for that to happen. And then you'll have a PDF collection or a PDF document, I should say, of your court case of interest. So keep that in mind. And then from a more historical perspective, the Errors and Appeals Court was the highest court in New Jersey prior to 1947. So the Supreme Court was actually an appellate court, and then the Errors and Appeals Court was the highest appeals court in New Jersey at the time. These are incredible cases that go back very far, and again, not unlike the microfilm reels, contain briefs and exhibits and all kinds of historic information. We're currently in the process of digitizing these, and that's going to be, you'll see a theme throughout our presentation. We are currently in the process of trying to digitize as much as possible to make it easier for us to send you what you need when you ask it. So Errors and Appeals will be that, and a lot of people say, well, what would I need that for? You know, I had one case where Booker versus Board of Education is a very famous case here in New Jersey, took place in Plainfield, and it was families who were trying to get equal school resources for communities of color versus white communities. This is, again, like I said, a landmark case. Many people know of it, but many people only know the name Booker associated with it, when in fact, there are a number of families that were involved in this. As far as I know, only through our Errors and Appeals records could you find the names of those other families. So while some things may seem to a researcher like, I'm never going to need that, you never know. There's gems in all of this legal information. So if you can move, there we go. The next next special collection that we have here, and this is really our bread and butter here in law, okay, is, as I said, everything in law tends to come from based on what came before it, and we have things going back to pre-statehood. Okay, we have all of the session laws of New Jersey. Session laws are simply a bound copy of all the laws passed in any given year in order. And so the first law passed in a year, like the first law passed in 2024 would be considered chapter 1. And each chapter comes thereafter. So it's generally just chronological. Sometimes there's cases are given a specific number, but for the most part, it's just chronological. But we have these going back to the 1800s. As I said, we have pre-statehood laws and acts, which can be very helpful to people when they're trying to determine what life was like in New Jersey back in the day. So we have in addition to legal researchers, sometimes we have writers come in and they're just interested in these kinds of things. So we get a lot more use than simply I have a court case, and these kinds of special collections going back in time are really wonderful. If you're researching the history of a law and you're unsure when the law began, one of the great places to start is the 1937 revised statutes. There was an enormous revision of all of our colonial era laws into more we'll call modern laws that took place in 1937. And these documents, which we do have available digitally, are really helpful in being able to determine if a law in 1937 was a new law or if it goes back to those pre-statehood laws. And if it does, it'll give you pointers to those laws. So it's a really powerful research tool. Whenever I'm researching the history of a law, it's one of the first places that I go, and I highly recommend that people check it out so that they can understand where their laws that they're interested in are born. Another wonderful collection that we have is the New Jersey Law Journal. The New Jersey Law Journal was a newspaper that was published in New Jersey since 1908 up till the end of 2023. Starting in 2024, it's an entirely digital publication. If you could go back, Kelsey.
Sorry.
It was again in this newspaper in 2024 has gone to a completely digital publication now. However, it is also what it was known by many as the paper of record. In this New Jersey Law Journal going back in time, you have all the notices to the bar, as well as detailed information on all the Supreme Court committees over the years and their recommendations for rules of the court or any other recommendations. So this can be incredibly important information to understand how the judiciary has changed over time. And as I said, we have these going back to 1908. They are in bound volumes. It can be very difficult to digitize them, but we do our best to get you a complete copy of it. Modern articles going back to, I think, around 2005 or so, we can also pull from a database, but we do have the actual print issues here, and we'll have the full run. And so that's a really great historical document. And then finally, in our special collections, I mentioned the court rules. The New Jersey court rules and the annotated New Jersey court rules are pretty much your roadmap to how to do things in court. They're incredibly important, and we have them going back to 1885. So again, you can watch and see how the court's choices have changed over time. And this is a great collection. It's very interesting to see how things have changed. So I encourage people to come in, even if you don't need them to look at some of these older things. It can be very eye-opening, indeed. You can change slides now. Thank you. In addition to those, we have, as I said, history is what everything that we do. So we can take the New Jersey statutes, i.e. all of the laws created by the legislation back in time, and we have all of the New Jersey annotated statute books from West Publishing House. They are terrific. They give not only the full text of the law, which you could find, for free in many places, but they give a lot of information about the law, prior laws, case law information, ideas and places to look for additional information on this law. So these are incredibly helpful, and we again have them going back in time. We have the New Jersey Administrative Code, which are the regulations that are promulgated by the various agencies in New Jersey think the Environmental Protection Agency and environmental rules. And that's what we're talking about here. The administrative code is really cool, but it only came about in 1969. So prior to that, most of the agencies, put out individual booklets or talked about their regulations in different ways. And that's one of my favorite collections. As you can see by the picture here, my absolute favorite, because I do want to be an astronaut when I grow up, is rocket experimentation for amateurs. And this is the regulations from 1963 about people beginning to use rockets back in 63, and they needed to create regulations about these. So it's fascinating to look at these interesting things. Another one of my favorites are the regulations for egg breaking establishments, i.e. if you break eggs, cook them, you had to follow those regulations. So we have a vast collection. It's probably not complete. We probably don't have every regulation that came or the administrative code came to be, but we have a very good selection of these. So they are, again, fascinating. We have all the games of chance and casino regulations before modern day regulations and Atlantic City came to be. So all of these tend to speak to how things became. The New Jersey Register is is how regulations are distributed. When the agency proposes a regulation, they put it in the register, they allow a period of time for public comment, and then when they adopt the regulation, they have to put it in the register again. So this is, again, a great way to track what's happened and why with a regulation. And we have all of the New Jersey registers, and they have all been published digitally, so you can utilize these whether you're in the library or not. It's a powerful collection, and I again think a lot of researchers will be quite interested in this. You can move forward, Kelsey. And then one of the biggest things that makes the New Jersey State Library's law library different than most libraries is that we create content, and we do this every day. Every piece of legislation passed in New Jersey, we create what's known as a legislative history for it. For those of you who are not familiar with legislative history, it contains a checklist of what we looked for, and there will be a yes, no, saying yes, we found it, or no, we did not. Then there will be, behind that checklist, all the documents that we did find. And those are all put together in one PDF that we can send out to you digitally. And then you will know the entire history of how that legislation came to be. We also will pull news clips. We do not include that in our legislative history packet. The reason for that is we do not have the copyright to those, so we can't just publish them. But if your checklist says that there's news clips, all you have to do is ask us, and we can pull those news clips and send them out to you. This is a very interesting information. If you're talking about a law that was passed in 2023, a lot of that information can be found, on the legislature's website and things like that. But if you're talking about things back in time again, and at some point, 2023 will be 20 years, back in time, these legislative histories are invaluable to helping a researcher understand the law. A lot of times researchers are trying to figure out the intent. Why did someone decide to make a law about texting while driving, for example? And hopefully the legislative history will give you some insight into that, and it'll give you some insight into how things changed, what the language of the legislation was and how it changed over time. So most of this collection is available online, or I should say much of this collection is available online, so you can pull up the histories yourself. We index everything by year and chapter number. Remember, I talked about those session laws. Session laws are also by year and chapter number, and we index everything by year and chapter number. You can get it online. However, if you don't find something, that does not mean that we haven't already done this in this legislative history. It simply means that we're playing a game of catch up. Just as legislation is passed and we're going forward, we're going back in time. We have a number of histories are completed and done, but they're in paper. And we're in the process and have been in the process of digitizing these many pieces of paper so that more and more will be available online at all times. But it's just, it's a losing game, because as quickly as we start getting things, more things are passed. So whenever you're at a loss or you can't find something, give us a call or send us an email. Email is great because then we can send things directly back to you, but we're happy always to talk to you on the phone as well. Or you can come in and we can talk to you about these things as well. If we don't have a legislative history for you, we're not just going to say, well, we don't have that. We're going to try and give you what we can. It's very easy for us to pull a session law and send that out to you, so you can have at the very least the session law that tells you exactly what the wording was at the time of passage. However, we also have other things that we can pull and look at and get to you to help you have a history of legislation, even if we have not fully compiled a history. However, that tends to take place only way back in the past, in that I'd say from the 90s forward at the very least, we have everything that because we do it for every piece of legislation. This year, we began doing it for appropriations and temporary and executed legislation as well, which is something that prior to the year 2021, I believe, we did not do legislative histories for those kinds of things, for appropriations in particular, because they are enormous and it is quite cumbersome, and temporary and executed, same thing. They're just not the kind of laws that we normally did. However, now that we're in the age of digitization and we can pull many of these items directly from the legislature in a digital format, we're beginning to collect all of them, because oftentimes, as many people know, digital things were on a website on Wednesday. When you go back, on Thursday, they can be gone. So in order to collect and archive this information, we're doing all of the laws now. So, and one of the things we really like to make people understand is, if that checklist says no, there was no congressional report about this legislation, it means that a librarian has actually done that research, tried to find it, did not find it. A second librarian then looks at these checklists, proofreads them, and checks to make sure that the first librarian got everything correct. So you're pretty much guaranteed. We really stand by this. If there's a no, we believe that there is no other document there. If there is a yes, we've got the document and we've attached it to the history for you. So sometimes it can be hard to accept that no, or people worry a little bit, but I can guarantee you that two professionals have looked at this and decided that indeed no is the correct answer, i.e. no means no in this case. So, but if you have a question, you can always call and we'll explain it to you, talk to you a little bit more about your specific law. So that's my reports on the special collections. I believe this is my last slide. I'm not sure, Kelsey.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to Kelsey, and she's going to talk about some of the other really wonderful things that we offer. And I look forward to your questions. Thank you for listening to me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Cynthia. So we do have many subject-specific treatises, and some treatises that also cover a multitude of subjects in one under one title. The best example of this is the New Jersey Practice Series, which has everything, just full stop. If it's about New Jersey law in any aspect, it'll be in New Jersey Practice. There are a lot of areas that are very popular, specifically family law, condo and real estate law, attorney ethics, and expunging records. Attorney ethics is probably one of the most popular. We do get quite a few attorney ethics questions, and we do have books on specifically New Jersey attorney ethics. For New Jersey practice, the most popular subject areas are the legal forms and the family law. It's gotten to the point where we can't even let people check those out because they won't come back. They are by far the most popular. While many of our resources are New Jersey specific, we also have general and federal reference materials, such as American Jurisprudence and West's Federal Practice series. Another really good resource that we have is called the Blue Book, which is a legal citation tool. It covers almost everything, and unless there's something like very specific in a certain state, that's a local citation rule, the Blue Book is generally the best citation tool. We also have a lot of wonderful electronic resources here at the library, in addition to our print collection. The most used is Lexis and Westlaw, which are only available on the 2 public computers in the law section. So you do have to be on site to use those. Both are wonderful for case law research as well as legal subject specific research. And they're also fairly user friendly. But for example, if I wanted to look up information on perjury, I could just put perjury in the search bar and I could see all of the cases, statutes and legislation, secondary sources, administrative materials, et cetera, that deal with perjury. We also have resources that can be used on site or by remote access for authorized users. Authorized users are state employees and sometimes Thomas Edison State University students. Hein Online is a very underrated resource and is one of my personal favorites. If there's an old law review article that you're having trouble tracking down, or like an obscure medieval statute that you have the citation for but don't know how to retrieve, it's probably on Hein. And they also do federal legislative histories, which is something that's particularly unique and really useful about Hein Online. We have 2 products specifically from Walters Kluwer, CCH Answer Connect, which provides information and news on tax law, and Vital Law, which provides information on health and employment law. We also have a newer resource to us called The Making of Modern Law. And this covers US and international law and has resources dating back to the 17th century. It's a really good resource for early modern era primary sources, and it does occasionally have some things that Hein Online doesn't. But Hein Online is definitely my favorite. So now we're going to talk about what to expect from us here at the law library. There are many things that we can do for you. However, there are just as many things that we can't do. So here are some things to expect when you're starting your legal research journey. Number one, legal research. Legal research is an extraordinarily long and slow process, and it requires you to read. The resources can be very intimidating since they're usually written for lawyers and not us regular people. So you might want to keep the legalese to English dictionary nearby. We cannot give you legal advice. We're librarians. We're not lawyers. We cannot give you legal advice. While we can give you resources, you have to do the reading and you have to be the ones that interpret what you find yourself. Again, we are not lawyers. We are librarians. We can give you the book, but we can't tell you what it means. And this extends to legal forms and case law research. All case law research is legal advice. We cannot do that for you. We also cannot choose which form you might need for your situation. We can direct you to resources like New Jersey Practice, which has legal forms in it, or the New Jersey Courts legal forms catalog, but we cannot send you the forms. We cannot tell you which form to use. Just like we cannot tell you which case for case law research would apply to your situation. That's legal advice. We can't do that. However, if you're having trouble navigating a database, say you're here in the library and you're having a little bit of trouble using Alexis, we're more than happy to show you how to use that. It often only takes a couple of minutes because many of these databases have kind of embraced the Google model, where they have like the basic search bar, and then you can narrow results or whatever you like, by whatever you like. We can also suggest phrases to use. One thing that is a very, very specific example of this, in the New Jersey statutes, the words cell phone and the phrase mobile phone aren't used. It's an electronic communications device, which is obviously far more well-known and widely used than the silly cell phone phrase. So we can help you direct your own research by giving you suggestions of what phrases to search for, what titles like of the New Jersey statutes, if you're looking specifically for something dealing with real estate, we can tell you that real estate is generally covered under the title that deals with property. I can't remember the number right now. Or for another example, Title 39 deals with motor vehicles. We can also help you navigate our print resources, such as New Jersey Practice, which again covers basically everything, including forms and templates. Again, we cannot tell you which ones you need. That is legal advice, but we can say, this is the volume that has the forms of New Jersey Practice. Again, deciding which form you want, deciding if a case applies to your situation, deciding what statute applies to your situation, interpreting a statute or a case or anything else is legal advice, and we cannot do that. We also don't have a document delivery department. As Cynthia said earlier, while she was discussing the appellate and Supreme Court microfilm reels, you would have to come into the library or send someone in on your behalf to copy those transcripts. And that's all I've got. So I think we can open it up for questions.
Perfect.
All right, thank you, Kelsey and Cynthia. You can see on the screen right now the contact information for both the general law department as well as Kelsey and Cynthia. If you do have kind of general questions, please reach out to the ref law email. That way that if Cynthia or Kelsey are out, it'll go to the centralized queue and somebody will be able to pick it up fairly quickly. So that's just one bit of suggestion. Then we could jump into
Yeah, that
questions.
makes sense. The queue is covered at all times that we are open, and this is how we do that one day, same day turnaround is when things come into the ref law email. That's definitely the best way to go. If it came into my email, for example, today, and I'm on this webinar, I will not be seeing that or answering that. So that's why it's always best to send your queries to that, what's considered a generic email, but it honestly, it's not a no man's land. It does not get lost. Someone is watching that at all times.
Also, we do cover that from 8:30 to 10 and from 4:30 to 5.
Right.
So even when we're not open for walk-in service, we are still looking at the ref law email and answering questions.
Great point. It's not unusual to get a ref law question from 2 o'clock in the morning. Also, you guys are at home doing your research. When the mood hits, send us the question. We're happy to answer it.
All right. Do you have case files from the 1800s? I have a great-great-grandfather who had spent time in Sing Sing and was later acquitted. There was information in the newspapers at the time, but having worked in a law department, I know what is reported in the papers is usually very different than the truth.
I won't talk about the press on that side of it, but because it's Sing Sing, that's outside of New Jersey, I suspect that's either a California case or a federal case. And I apologize, I should have made it clear when I was talking about our court cases, these are New Jersey specific. Older federal cases can still have some things if they are large enough and meaningful enough, but you would have to contact that court and start there. All of the federal courthouses in the United States do have a customer service thing, so you could contact them and they can let you know. I don't know what the retention times are or anything like that off the top of my head, but I am going to say, unless this was a really groundbreaking constitutional kind of case from the 1800s, it's a long shot that you're going to find something, but you may be able to, and you know that's basically where that stands.
In the 2010s, a Princeton University student sued Princeton University for a number of federal discriminatory charges. By your experience, will I be able to find any court document on that specific case?
Yes, because it's 2010. Because you're saying it's federal, federal discrimination situation. If it's in a federal court, you won't necessarily be able to find those court materials from us. Again, we are far more New Jersey specific, so it depends on where this case took place. You may not, also from 2010, it may be here, it may be just at the courts. Like if this went through the New Jersey courts, you would contact the New Jersey court clerk for the appellate court or for the Supreme Court, and they can tell you where to find those documents. 2010, you should have no problem finding court documents. Under court documents are a different case, okay? They may or may not be around since 2010. All of our cases are ones that have gone up on appeal or have gone up to the Supreme Court. And that tends to be the case in most states as well. The undercourt has so many cases, they're not often saved for a long period of time. But again, 2010's that sweet spot where it's not that long ago and many records are digitized. So I would suggest that you determine where that case was heard and contact each of those courts. If it was heard in a New Jersey court, we can help you get the, a contact information for the court clerk's office and help you with some of the particulars on that.
I just would add that, when we say New Jersey court, we mean on the state level, not the federal court based in New Jersey, which I think is the Third Circuit, Cynthia?
I believe so. On the spot, I'm not 100% sure what circuit, but yes, there's a federal court in New Jersey. That's not what we're talking. We're talking about New Jersey state materials. At the federal level, you have to go through the federal courts to get any court records.
Or PACER.
Oh, yeah, or PACER. Those both may have costs attached to them as well.
Yes.
Same thing in New Jersey. If it's a current case, there's generally a cost associated with getting copies of the materials.
All right. This is from a public librarian. We get a lot of questions about divorce, renter and landlord rights, etc. Where can we go for those types of questions? And do you have local ordinances as well?
All of the local ordinances are available online, or most are available online. But it is not something that we keep as a part of our collection, but we're happy to help you find them online or get you contact information for the municipality, but that's where you would deal with those. Sometimes we'll refer people to the public libraries. Although having worked in a public library, I know that you don't always have, again, legal things like this nowadays are so available online that a lot of public libraries don't have them. So for local ordinances, we'll work with you, but we can't guarantee it. And then as far as those topics go, I highly recommend that every public library in the state buys the GAN. That's a publisher, GANN. They're very well known for their annotated legal books. They are written for attorneys, but they're fantastic because they annotate all of the various citations and things about this specific topic. And they have very good family law books that deal with, keep in mind also in New Jersey, divorce and custody are separate issues. So there's a book on divorce. There's also a book on all the custody issues and things like that. For a great primer on divorce, the Legal Services of New Jersey has a downloadable book that you can get. It's about 110 pages. That is free unless you want all the forms and documents, in which case it will cost you, I believe it's $25 right now. That is probably the best document I know of that's written for non-lawyers. It's very helpful and very easy to understand. So it's always where I send people to start out with. As Kelsey mentioned, legal research is slow and requires reading. So when I send you a 110-page document, in my head, I'm actually going like, that's not that long, because those GAN books are thousands of pages long. You would look into that book for specifically what you wanted and only use part. No one uses the entire book, but you need to be prepared to do the reading, and anyone does. If I know Andrew mentioned that a lot of librarians had signed up for this. So that's one of the managing expectation things that you have to do as a librarian. You have to let the people know, like, I'm going to hand you this giant thing, or I'm going to direct you to a giant thing. Yeah, you actually do have to read through it. I can't, because I can't give you the advice. You have to come to that on your own. So as far as wills go, I think that was mentioned as well. Probate, every county has its own probate, surrogate's office that deals with probate. And many of them have really great resources online. Union County has really good resources online that explain what is a will, what does it have to contain? What does it mean to die with a will or without a will? Okay. You have to have the original copy. If you have a photocopy of someone's will, that's dying without a will still. You have to have that original copy of the will in order for it to be, otherwise you're dying without a will, that's a different process. So I highly recommend those areas, and people with specific questions. Again, we push this kind of information out on a regular basis. We're in the process of creating a bunch of LibGuides, and that will have a lot of this kind of information on it as well. I hope that those will be done soon, many of them, but it's the kind of thing that it changes like I said, Union County has great probate. If they change their website, that could change. So a lot of times I'm regularly just going out there going like, okay, where can I find out who's got some good stuff? Because even if you're not in Union County, the laws and the process are exactly the same that Union County lays out really well, but the other county that you may be in, theirs may not have very much information on their website. So one of the things to keep in mind is all the laws in all of these kinds of family and regular people legal issues are at the state level. So you can look at other counties' resources, and sometimes they're better than your own counties. So keep that in mind.
Could you just name the downloadable divorce booklet again, and maybe where that's
Sure.
accessible?
It's going to be on the Legal Services of New Jersey website, which is lsnj.org. They have a tab at the top that says publications. Under publications, you'll see, I think it's called is it the divorce book or Divorce in New Jersey? Something like that.
Yeah.
Same thing for tenants' rights. They have the best tenants' rights book I know of, written for non-lawyers. Now, most people will need to read that and then get some more tenants' rights information, but it's really a terrific place to start. Where divorce is concerned, this can actually step you through how to do the divorce yourself. So it's a very handy one. But under that publications tab, you'll see those publications. I think almost all of them are available in both English and Spanish. And you'll also see they have an expunging your record in five easy steps. For these topics are the best thing for someone who's not a lawyer or not working in the legal profession.
Can you just describe what case law is and then why it's something that we won't do at the library?
Okay, so case law research is when you're looking at cases that have already been tried and decided by a court. It can be the New Jersey Superior Court or the US Supreme Court, that can either bolster your own case. A lot of cases set what's called precedent, which means, okay, well, this situation has happened before and this is the outcome of that situation. So this situation that's a lot like that situation, but is happening now, might also have that same outcome because it has been an established precedent. So case law research is very important if you're trying a case. It can also help if you're looking for, say, your opponent is trying to make such and such a point, and you have case law that maybe doesn't really help you prove your own point, but helps you disprove their point. That can also be useful, and you can cite that in your argument when you're talking to the judge or the jury. However, again, deciding which case to cite in your own motions or briefs and so on is legal advice. So that's why we can't tell you, oh, well, such and such a case will apply to your situation. We can't interpret that. Lawyers go to school for a long time and they make a lot of money because they do this kind of work, and like that's why they make the big bucks. I hope that helped explain a little bit about case law research. It is a very weird thing. Um,
And if I can jump in, essentially the reason we can't do it is it calls for making a decision. Just
mhm.
like picking a form calls for making a decision. No one wants us to do that because we're not qualified to do that, okay? A lawyer will, as Kelsey said, spend a great deal of time with the person, with their client, getting all of the specifics, doing research on the case. That is not just simply, that is not possible in a library situation. And some of the librarians on staff are lawyers. Kelsey and I are not, but the other two librarians in the department are lawyers, but they're not your lawyer. So in this capacity, they're still acting as a librarian. No matter, yeah, one of the great tragedies in America is the lack of uh, access to actual legal advice for people, especially people without a great deal of money. And but no matter how bad that situation is, we can't be pressed into service as your lawyers because you don't want that. We are not lawyers and we don't play one on TV. We really do not have the skills nor the ability to know every specific of your case and put in the time, to do case law research, talking literally dozens of hours of reading through cases saying, yes, this matches the specifics of my case. No, this doesn't. It matches here, but it doesn't there. It's a very fine-tuned situation. In a perfect world, we all would be able to access lawyers and get legal advice. We help you as best we can, but we can't make the decisions for you. You have to decide.
Do county courts still have librarians to help people find materials and information?
For the most part, no. Many of the courts do have an ombudsman's office, which will help people to navigate the legal system. Each court is different. You would have to contact them is the ombudsman's office open there? And they have limited collection. They do have usually a computer terminal where you can use things like the Lexis database or the West database. I don't know which, you would need to speak to those organizations directly, but you can't be guaranteed that you walk into a courthouse and there will be a library like there used to be. As far as I know, when it comes to actually having a full service law library, there's us that is open to the public. There is Rutgers Law School in Newark. Their library is open to the public. Rutgers Law School in Camden, I believe, is open to the public, but you might have to call and make an appointment. It all changes, each of these organizations have their own rules, but to my knowledge, they're the only law libraries, these three law libraries, that people can be guaranteed to come into, the public can be guaranteed to come into. Now Seton Hall has a law library. It's an excellent law library, but I believe only Seton Hall students, people affiliated with the university or alumni can go into the Seton Hall University. I don't believe it's just open to the public. So it's tough. It's very difficult. The good thing is Newark is up north. We're right here, dead center of the state, and Camden is down south. So we're not without, law libraries up and down the state, but it's not easy. And we're not the only state. I don't want to make New Jersey seem like we're somehow terrible. I think that just for the most part, running a law library is expensive. And many organizations have cut them.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not aware of any other law libraries that are open to the public in the tri-state Pennsylvania Northeast area.
Yeah, exactly.
What organizations help people with limited education, literacy, or English language proficiency to find materials about laws?
Sadly, us public libraries, it can do what we can, it is not easy. And again, love my public libraries in New Jersey, and I love my public librarians, and they can really help you a lot with this stuff, just like we can. But when it push comes to shove, what a lot of people need is legal advice. And that is not something that we can provide anyone, in these situations. Newark Law Library cannot. You can contact the law schools. Prior to the pandemic, there were a number of law schools that offered what were known as clinics. Rutgers had a few, Seton Hall again had a few, and on specific topics, they would actually help people and give you, advice, and you'd be working with law students under the supervision of a law professor. I don't know how many of those have come back after the pandemic. For a while during the pandemic, there was a free online service called Free Legal Answers, New Jersey. I was giving that out for ages and stuff, and about last month they pulled the plug on that, and they say that something will be coming back again. But I've seen no movement on that. And that was something that was set up specifically by the American Bar Association during the pandemic to help people to get legal advice. Because the pandemic caused a number of legal issues for a number of people, eviction being a perfect example of that, and tenants' rights. So they set this up, the American Bar Association, and New Jersey participated. Some states are still participating and have not shut down theirs. For whatever reason, New Jersey has shut down theirs at this point. So it is very difficult for us to find anywhere that we can refer you to at this point of a legal clinic like this. But it is absolutely something that in the past, has been available. So you would need to contact the various, I'd start with Rutgers, but you could contact other law schools as well, regarding the clinics and things like that. There are some specific to immigration law, private, private nonprofit organizations specifically dealing with immigration law that can be enormously helpful, can help people who are non-English speakers, much more than us. And there's a number of them in New Jersey. Honestly, I would check, I would Google that when I have somebody come in. I have lists of them, but until I need them, I don't know if they're still good or not. So I Google and I check.
Is there a legal related newsletter that would be helpful to librarians?
Legal Services of New Jersey, we gotta love them. Legal Services of New Jersey does have a really, really good newsletter, and one of the best things about that newsletter is it deals a lot with education law. So like right at the end of August, beginning of September, the newsletter was all about your rights in New Jersey regarding education. And, so it'll often be done in a timely manner, and it's really great. It lets you know about a bunch of different resources. I read it all the time, primarily just to find out if there is like a new clinic that started or a new immigration hub, but or something like that. It'll mention them, and it's really great. It gives people a lot of advice on things like tenants' rights or expunging your record. When marijuana became legal in New Jersey, the newsletter like the month after was how to go about expunging your record if you had been arrested and convicted of a marijuana related crime. So it's usually topical. It's great. It's a really good newsletter. Now I subscribe to tons of newsletters just because it helps to inform me, as well. So the Department of Consumer Affairs, also here in New Jersey, has an enormous amount of information. I don't get a newsletter from them per se. Well, yeah, I guess I do. They are always pushing out trainings, though, that are really good on a lot of different rights. Again, education rights. There was just recently one on hair discrimination in schools. For a number of Black students, they have gotten in trouble for their hair over the years. In New Jersey, that's not okay. And these detailed that information as well. So there's DCA is a great source of information about our rights in New Jersey. There's, workplace rights they run trainings on. They did recently a webinar on the law of discrimination in New Jersey, and it was great. It really helped sort in my head what this is all about, to better understand the law, so that when somebody comes in, I'm better at saying, okay, this book deals with the law of discrimination. This section I would suggest you focus on, but you want to look at the entire thing, that kind of thing. So I definitely think DCA is a great resource.
Two questions related to library cards. Do we need to have a library card to visit the state library? And do state library cards apply to public libraries? Can a public library get a card?
It's a great question. I hope that a public library could get a card, but anyone who lives or works in the state of New Jersey can get a New Jersey State Library card. So even if we don't have an organizational one, you certainly can get one on your own. That said, having a card or not having a card when it comes to dealing with the law unit specifically is not going to get you access, say, to some of our more powerful databases and things like that, because most of them are site specific. They, like Lexis and Westlaw, we cannot afford to make that available outside the library, period. That's why many people, like attorneys, things like that, they send us the questions via RefLaw, we get the answer for them, and we send it out to them. We're the ones who use the database, or, things like that. So please get a library card. Anyone who, works in a library knows how important those numbers are to a library. So please get library cards, but as far as in order to use us, come visit without a library card, get in touch without a library card, does not make a difference. In fact, when someone sends me an email with a question, I don't even ask, do you or do you not have a library card? I simply answer the question. And on that note, as many people know, what happens at the reference desk stays at the reference desk. We do not discuss this with legal questions. These can be so embarrassing and so personal, and there's so much shame often attached and things like that. And we want you to know you are welcome here. We do not share this. We don't even share the questions with one another unless we need a consult. Which there are definitely cases where I'll go in and say, okay, Kelsey, I got this one. I've done XYZ. What do you think? But she doesn't get that attached to a specific patron or anything. She's helping me. So we want you to know that it's not gonna leave here. It's not gonna leave here.
Yeah, we take privacy very, very seriously. We want to help you as much as we can, and part of that means not discussing your question with anybody but you, unless, again, we need a consult. But even then, like, it stays at the what happens at the law desk, it's like Vegas, like Cynthia said. And yeah, so we're just trying to help you the best we can.
Yeah, and for the members of the public on the webinar, this is true of all the libraries in New Jersey. There is not a public library in New Jersey that I know of that does not adhere to that same principle of privacy. Libraries are awesome, and we don't want to embarrass you or talk about you or anything. We're just here to get you your resources, all of us, up and down the state.
Fun fact, that kind of corresponds to that. The American Library Association is still on the CIA's watch list because during the Red Scare, librarians refused to give out patron information. That has not changed, and it's something that every librarian and library employee that I've ever talked to is like really proud of. Like, yeah, on the CIA's watch list, because we don't disclose your questions or anything. Questions, items you've taken out, nothing.
Right.
Maybe I think this is going to be related to a different department, but does the state library still excel in library law? I think what they're meaning is, do we still have an impact in creating laws for libraries in New Jersey? But that's something that I believe is outside of your purview.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can't, speak to that, but I will say this. We do have a director of library law. Very confusing because we're the law library. This is the director of library law. His name is Bob Keith. He is steeped in all the New Jersey laws that pertain to libraries. And Bob can help you to determine which ones do apply to your library, which don't, because for example, a law regarding a public library in New Jersey is dependent on the type of library that it is. If it's a municipal library, if it's a free public library, if it's a county library, if it's a privately owned library. So it's not so easy to go like the library law is. It's really dependent on a number of factors, which is pretty much how law works, quite frankly. It's dependent on a number of factors. But we do have that. There is a part of our website right now that has all the current laws about library law on it. It's a page that helps trustees. We do have a program that helps trustees to understand what laws apply and what don't apply and things like that. That said, our website is about to undergo a complete redo, so I'm not exactly sure how it's going to look in the future or if it will still be there, but I can tell you we as an organization will continue to support libraries in getting access to and understanding the laws that pertain to libraries. Not at our desk, like not in the law library, but the organization does have things in place for that.
Mhm.
I don't see any other questions, so anything you would like to close with?
Just that we really hope that everyone who's on here gets in touch with us and sends us emails and asks us our question. We love our jobs. I mean, Kelsey and I both every day talk about how much we love our jobs. The entire staff in the law library feels that way. It's never a problem. We really want people to get in touch with us. I've had a number of librarians over the years, friends and things like that, who get in touch and go like, where do I start or what do I do? We can certainly help you answer a library question as well. We'll be happy to help you to understand yes or no. One of the hardest things in doing legal research is sometimes you're not going to find anything, and particularly members of the public often are looking for something that simply does not exist. Okay. Because a lot of times the law is silent on a topic, okay? If it's not, it feels like the law is in every aspect of our life, but it really is not. And sometimes it's completely silent on the specifics of your situation. That can be hard to know when to end your researching, so as a public librarian, if you've done a bunch of research and you're finding nothing and you're feeling a little queasy, A, you're feeling exactly like you should feel. B, give us a call. We'll tell you whether or not you missed something in your research trail. More than likely you did not. I think like both Kelsey and I do not come from a law background. And we've learned to do this, we love this, but it's really not different than doing other types of research, with the exception of that weird, sometimes there will be nothing there. And you have to either circle back and restart with a completely different search, or accept that the law is silent on that. A phrase that we use continuously here, the law is silent on that.
We use that all the time.
Yeah. So, but thank you everyone for coming in. It's not that exciting a topic, so we were really, really excited to have you all here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you for everybody for attending today. And thank you, Kelsey and Cynthia, for sharing the wonderful resources we have available in the law library here. And again, if anybody does have questions, please feel free to reach out for them. Or if you have the opportunity and would like to visit, you're more than welcome to come to State Street and visit the law library. So everybody be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye. Thank you.